So what difference does union with Christ make? We've been looking at Romans 6 together for some time, and Paul talks about our union with Christ. And by the 11th verse, he's going to say that we should consider ourselves dead to sin and alive to God. So what does that actually mean? How does that work out practically? How do we go about doing those kinds of things? Paul talks about being crucified with Christ, buried with Christ, raised with Christ. And he connects these to what we would call the doctrines or the ideas of justification, sanctification, glorification. In other words, when we are justified, it means we have been crucified with Christ. The guilt of our sin has been paid for by his death on the cross. When Christ is raised from the dead, one aspect of that is spiritual, that we are raised spiritually anew when we come to faith in Christ. And further, that there's a future bodily resurrection, and that's what glorification points to. And getting all of those things right, and not just right for the sake of being right, but correct in our thinking, has a huge impact then on living the Christian life. If I don't know that God is satisfied, that God the judge is happy with me, then I'm going to struggle to live well before him, because I'll live out of guilt and misery. The old theologian William Romaine put it this way: if sin has not been put to death, that is, its guilt, if I don't know that I have died to sin as to its guilt, I'll never have any success in living in such a way that I triumph over sin in my own life. It can't be crucified in my living unless it's first been put to death in my conscience. Now, Paul says we should consider this. We should think about this, reckon this. We're to ponder this. Christian living first begins with a right understanding in the mind of these realities that come with being in Christ. Sam Storms summarized this so well. Justification is past and position. Sanctification is present and progressive. Glorification is prospective and permanent. Justification is how God sees us in Christ. Sanctification is what we are in our daily experience. Glorification is what we will be in heaven. Justification is something done for us. Sanctification is something done in us. Glorification will be something done to us. Put it another way, when we are justified, we died to sin's guilt. In union with Christ, even in our sanctification, we have died to the reign of sin, to sin's power. And when we are finally glorified in the resurrection, we shall then be taken away from the very presence of sin. And that hope and that understanding fuels Christian living.